see. Some of them are inappropriate and some of them are not, but today we'll start with Sasha. I'm an implementation specialist and work for at the Care for Patients team and have been doing that since about 2 or 3 years now. Our team mostly works with third-party implementation integrations that are a bit more patient-specific. So, yesterday I talked about Notify, we talked about CHADIS, the ability to send SMS. So our team is really focused and specializes in that particular area. We do have the other teams that handle immunizations and so forth, but we're a very small group that typically specializes in patient engagement integrations, along many other things, but that's something that we do a lot. So here today, I want to talk about CHADIS and CHADIS success stories. The last couple of years, we talked about how do we configure PCC-HR to work well with CHADIS. We did that twice back to back, and so this time around, I wanted to talk about more. What is the actual success? What are we seeing that works well with CHADIS? What are some of the things that we can improve, and things like that. So I have a number of slides. We may have some time for questions, and I just want to hear from you. All the stuff that you guys will be seeing on the screen really comes from me picking up my phone in office and just calling pediatricians and calling our offices and simply saying how things are going. None of that was expected. As a matter of fact, some of them were like, okay, man, I got to get off the phone. But anything that you see here comes from what we've seen so far. Now, before I start, one of the questions I'd like to ask, do we have anyone here in the room who is thinking about the integration? Do we have any new potential clients in this room? All right, so that's a success. We have 3 folks who are not integrated with CHADIS, PCC, so that makes me happy because I want to hear to see what you guys have to say. And for those of you who are integrated, I think that you'll be happy in terms of what you will see coming up. So, as I mentioned, how things are going, what is that we can see using a bunch of different reports that PCC has, and you guys are all PCC clients, so you know that we have a fairly well-established reporting with PCC. And again, there are definitely things that we have to talk as a group. How do we get better, right? Because every day we have to improve. No interface is perfect, and just requires a lot of maintenance and a lot of adjustments and so forth. And again, for the 3 clients here that raised their hands, here's the opportunity to see what kind of benefits you can get from being integrated with PCC and CHADIS. All right, I'm so happy for this mic because then I can move around a lot. So a little bit of history, right? I want to talk about how do we get here. You guys know the PCC doesn't do anything overnight. It's, in fact, sometimes takes years, and that can be frustrating for some. But that's the reason, that's how we do things, and we want to make sure that we found a partner that really works well for us. So it was years of interest from a number of our clients. Put it this way, I'm just on my 10th year at PCC. And integration with CHADIS is only a couple years old. So it did take a long time for us to find a partner, to write the right appropriate people to work with, and also someone that has the same values that we do here at PCC. And officially, we rolled out CHADIS in 2021. And again, it was multiple years spent looking at it, testing it, piloting, and looking at what can we do to get that, a dream come into a reality. When we first rolled out in 2021, I think Hannah, who's here, Stephen, who's here from CHADIS, we all worked together of getting things implemented. We had 50, 60 clients literally in the tunnel waiting to get implemented. We used to tell our clients it will take a while to get implemented. Now that we have this solution, it will take you 6, 7 weeks to get, and say, oh my God, we have to wait this long? And unfortunately, we did, because that's how much work we had for such a small team, both on PCC and as well as CHADIS too. But we made it happen, we made it a reality, and we gave you this phenomenal integrated tool. So, obviously, I have to talk about me a little bit, right? And I tell you some funny thing that happened with CHADIS. So, at the same time that we were getting ready to roll CHADIS out, we also did a lot of reconstructing the PCC in terms of people moving to different teams and areas that they prefer to be on and so forth. And so that was the case with me and my team. I roll into this new role, new position, and then at the same time they say, hey, you want to do this thing called CHADIS? And this is true, I'm not making this up. I didn't know what CHADIS was. So I'm with you on all of this, right? I literally had to Google this, and I was like, well, this seems like a phenomenal thing. I'll be happy to take that on along with everyone else on my team. It's not just me that does this. So I'm like, this is a great thing, great solution, great for our clients. I've heard about this. And so I had to learn just as much as you guys have to learn through that entire process. I would like to think that I know a couple of things, but we'll see. And so I mostly manage these implementations. This is something that I've done since 2021, majority of them. And again, I want to also, again, introduce Hannah here from CHADIS and Steven, as we work very closely together almost on a daily basis. We even have each other's phone numbers. So that's how much are we integrated now. So we're going to talk about, what is the actual success? What is it that we can, from an EHR company, some guy sitting behind the computer, he's here talking about success. This is success that comes, again, from looking at certain pieces of information that EHR, stores for us. These are the numbers that we can run, and ultimately it comes from, again, talking directly to clients who are integrated and just getting their own feedback. Okay. Like I mentioned, I want to make this really nice and exciting, but I also want to open up for questions because there was some stuff that we're going to probably agree and disagree on and so forth, and I think that's a beautiful thing about our clients and us as a company. So the first thing that we'll be talking about is the improved efficiency for offices and families, right? This is what we've seen. We have data to back that up as well. There are obviously better clinical outcomes. I think this is the reason for a majority of you guys to sign up for CHADIS. Because we can see a lot of different areas of improvement when it comes to the clinical flow. And increased revenue. So one of the things that I really don't like doing personally is talking about money in pediatrics and kids. But naturally, businesses need to make money to stay open. And of course, with this integration and so forth, increased revenue is just a natural occurring thing that happens. And we'll look at some numbers too. For that, I hope you will find compelling. All right, so I want to start off by talking about the questionnaires completed before the actual visit. That number right there is certainly not the number that we want to end up, as an ultimate number. We want to get that number even higher. And so this chart here is something that I received from CHADIS and talking to Hannah, and say, hey, give me some of the numbers here. What are we seeing so far, right? And so again, these numbers are not exactly as all that accurate. This is just, it gives us an idea of how things are going. So as you can see, guys, the blue lines here indicate the completion of these charts that happens before the visit actually happens. And so this is what we really want. However, we do want that number to be a lot higher. And so that is certainly the one area that we probably need to work together, but that's also the one area that software can't fix, right? So there is no code in the background that will, put it in my mom's hands and say, I really need you to fill this out before you arrive to that office. We do have a number of tools, which I will talk about later in upcoming slides, in some of the things that you can do proactively to make this a bit more, to make that higher number even higher for you in terms of using some of the PCC tools that we have and how you would use them and what strategy you can apply to make that happen. But again, as a matter of fact, I have a funny story. This morning I went for a run with a client and we discussed this exact same situation, right? So we were talking as we're running, I say, hey, how CHADIS is working for you. It's working great, it's configured well, and it's working really, really well, and it was great to hear that. However, we still struggle with patients and families not completing some of these before, right? And when they do complete it, he's just like, I'm just a happy, happy person. However, that doesn't happen all the time. And again, we'll talk about that more. That's probably the biggest area in terms of what we need to do as a company together to help you guys engage with your patients and families so they can, the completion rate goes above what we're seeing right now. Again, 51%, honestly, is a great number. Think about 50 patients that come into your waiting room, for example, okay? Just making numbers up. If somebody was telling me 25 of those patients don't have to fill out this manually, I'd be happy with that. But the question is, how do I get 70, 80, right? Ultimately 100. that will never happen. Let's be real. Okay, so that's probably one of the biggest things. Again, this is this overall number here, so that number will go up and down based on the practices. I've talked to practices who have a very strict rule, right, that all of this stuff needs to happen before. I've also talked to the practices who can't really make that be that strict because of other implications. So there's only a few clients so far with integrated that can do that. But for the most part, everyone in a phase struggles. That's a real-time struggle, and that's a question that I get asked often, along with team from CHADIS. It's a very difficult piece for us to talk about. It's always a challenge to finding out how can we make that better for all of our clients. All right, so that's it. But again, 51% completion rate is still, in my mind, for somebody who's sitting behind the computer, I think that number is still pretty good. And again, we played around with all these numbers that you guys are seeing, right? These are just approximate. I think we're being very generous with the numbers, right? We're not going anything crazy. We're trying to find that happy medium. So, for example, looking at estimated average 3 minutes per screening, though, I was told, again, this entire presentation was put on based on me making phone calls to a lot of different clients. Some of these screenings are a lot longer, right? I was told the ASQs sometimes can take a lot longer. Mom comes in, 2 kids, one wants to eat the floor, the other wants to break the front desk. So I can't just imagine doing that at that same time, right? So that's a daily struggle. So looking at an average of, less or so 3 minutes per screening, again, not excluding ASQs here in this case, and let's just say 2 screenings per family, okay? So you're looking at that number, that estimates about 20 patients a day, about 1 hour saved of your waiting room. Okay, so that's something that we're able to find. This is something that we're seeing, and so forth. So let's just say you're a bigger practice of 50 patients, around 2 hours or so that potentially can be saved. And again, the time saved, and we're talking about staffing, right? Staff time going from anywhere from the front desk, ultimately all the way up to providers. I'm not sure how many of you guys are 100 patients plus, but that's something that number would be around maybe 5 hours potentially. So again, this is just a rough estimate. It's something that we are seeing also behind the scenes. And one thing that you guys have to also understand, and I mentioned this maybe, this is across all of our integrated clients, up to date. Could be mistaken here, but I think we have close to 120 clients integrated with PCC-CHADIS solution. Okay, so this is looking at everyone. And again, this is also some of the stuff that I work with Hannah. So Hannah, thanks for that. So the first thing, you'll notice my slides don't have many details in here because I'm hoping to talk about a lot more in this presentation. What is it that we're seeing as the number one result of all of this would be naturally and organically going through saved staff time, which I hope can then lead into other projects, other administrative tasks, and so forth. So that would be the efficiency there, is the idea that you would be saving a lot of staff time. Now, that's not the case for the provider I ran this morning with, unfortunately. But again, I think they have a very complex demographic area in when they are. And so there's a big struggle for that particular office to get their patients to engage, and parents in most cases. So that's the idea, right? So the efficiency here, one of the first things that we're looking at is the save time, is something that every provider, every office was able to tell me that. The second, the biggest thing, again, I really tried hard to talk about many different offices and trying to narrow down some of the biggest important pieces that I wanted to talk about. So the other part is reduced manual entry. Again, you guys know this before the integration, and for those of you guys that are still doing this on paper, there's a lot of information that you actually have to put into your EHR. Okay, the whole idea is trying to save you that time, and so not having that need to do this, it will certainly give you a good amount of time that you don't have to do that work because it's all automated. Okay. Right here, this is something that came up a lot from talking to multiple practices. I don't know, I didn't go to school for 100 years, so I don't know how this stuff works, but when you're having a form that gets filled out by parents, right, you have to read this, for those of you who are not integrated, and then you have to score it, okay? I don't know how long scoring works. I don't know what ASQ looks like. I mean, I've seen it, but I don't know how long would it take to score something like that. So one of the things that I've heard a lot from providers is say, hey, I'm so happy we did this. As a matter of fact, if you ever to break up with CHADIS, you lose us and a partner. So we would be losing two things. Because that's how much they really enjoy. That's how much they really appreciate having the ability to all of this stuff to be coming back and be automated. Okay? Now, I don't know if we ever came close to breaking up, but hopefully keep it that way. And then my favorite one, that joke that I made about, one kid trying to eat the floor and the other one trying to break the front desk, that's actually a thing that I was told. And so this allows to keep that waiting room a lot less crowded, more efficient, and more sort of personalized time with parents when they do come in, right? Because you don't have to, as a front desk staff, you don't have to, go in there every 5 minutes to try to keep things calm and so forth. So the whole idea is, right, you get something down on your phone, you come in, you get into the room, and so you're keeping that waiting room nice and clean, right? That's the happy path here that we're trying to ultimately solve. And so we're going to talk about clinical impact. This is so weird coming from me, right? I'm not a clinician at all. Again, this is things that I've learned. This is things that we can see on the back end, all right? So one of the things naturally when you are integrated with such solution is that clients with integrations are able to deliver more screenings, okay? And what it really I found out is that obviously doing this on paper is not easy, right? And so you're looking at ways, what questionnaires are a must, what's bare minimum, and I'm gonna do this, and then the rest, maybe I'll get to it. Maybe I'll give this to a family if it's really must do, but otherwise I'm gonna refrain from doing too many screenings because it's a lot of time, right? So going to the waiting room, I'm gonna just give them a bare minimum, and that's it. So with the integration, the idea is that all of this is automated, it's on a schedule. We do all the work for you in terms of the EHR to talk to you and communicate back to CHADIS. And all of these screenings will always assign accordingly, okay? That means that when you are integrated with this particular solution, is that you get to even add more because you don't have to worry about this. This gets auto-added. All right, so that's certainly a success from this particular solution is that you can do more, okay? Now, in some cases, that has it can backfire. Right? Too many screenings, too many questionnaires for a family, sometimes like, whoa, so it's just something that you have to scale and also really pay attention to the demographics of your patients and where are you located, right? How much are they engaged in filling these out? But the big impact is that you can do more, naturally. Okay. I think you guys, most clinicians here, I think you'll agree with me. Again, this is another thing that I was told is that obviously doing more screenings, there's more room for early detection, right? And that's the whole idea here. I think this is why this is also important on a personal level for me that I'm doing this because I know that eventually we all have a positive outcome of having such a solution, right? So if anyone here objects to this particular slide here, I'd be happy to hear it now or after. But normally and naturally, again, we're seeing the idea is that you'll be able to detect more of these kids, okay? And so that obviously naturally also leads to better outcomes in terms of that patient being treated and for so many things in so many different areas, all right? So that's something that we were able to also discover and share it as a success story. Okay, again, the automated results, for you guys are obviously integrated, you know this, some of you might be even reviewing them right now, right? So when the surveys are out, when they're completed, every single provider I talk to and say, hey, the fact that we have these results indirectly in the chart, when I go in, I can review them on the fly. I don't have to spend time scoring and doing this with the patient, with the parent in the room is basically, that's the ultimate, that's the gold is what is what I was told. So that makes me really happy because we have that solution. We provide these results. CHADIS scores them for us, and we simply implement them and deliver them to you through the patient's chart. Okay, so that is huge in terms of how much time is saved, is my understanding. I mean, I knew some of this stuff. It's not like I had to ask every single question, and I'm just kind of conveying the information to you. I knew that the solution here was supposed to eliminate a lot of different, but it was also nice to hear that firsthand, because initially I prepared for more of a configuration type presentation, but then I realized, I'm like, you know what? You have a question, you can email me. I'm happy to help you configure. Let's talk more about what are we seeing, what are we learning, and what you guys are experiencing. All right, so this slide here, it took about 3 people to put together. Jim Leahy, I hope you're watching this. Thank you very much. And a lot of people helped me get this number, right? So we took all integrated clients who are currently using this solution. Then we said, give me a list of clients and give me the screenings per visit that's been billed, right? So not every single visit, but the ones that have been billed. And so the graph on the left indicates before PCC-CHADIS integration. The graph on the right is after PCC-CHADIS. So what we did, we went a couple years backwards. All right, I said, let me see how many screenings per billed visit was actually assigned. How many did we provide to our patients? And then give me the list, give me the number after. So I know the number's a little bit confusing, but I'll explain. So that 0.30 you're seeing there, that's how many visits of those screenings had per visit. The 0.36 indicates about roughly 20% increase throughout all of our clients. So my initial reaction was like, hey, Chip, that's not really a number. 20% is not that high. And he's like, you're wrong. That's significant. Okay. Again, this is a solution that's fairly new. This is only since 2021. You guys are growing. You guys are having more patients, opening new locations. So that is just simply going to grow to even a higher number. So again, the graph on the left indicates the amount of orders of developmental screenings before, and then on the graph on the right indicates how many of these screenings have been increased since the integration. So overall, so far, I can only give you the numbers of the current integrated clients. That is about 20%. I don't know how much more time I have, about 20 probably. So let's look at some studies here, okay? This is what we did as a part of a presentation as well. So again, this is a lot of talking with clients. So significant increase in screenings for various visit types. So initially when clients are onboarded, they had the bare minimum at most. Now we're seeing a lot of different different visit types. Maybe they only did well visits and so forth. Now we're seeing a lot of different, the list of these visit types are being added in terms of how many questionnaires they're putting in the different areas for each visit. Okay, so that's something that we've seen so far. The client A also mentioned that they're able to schedule more well visits as a result. This was really exciting because, again, that goes back to the plan of us having such integration, is that we want to help you save your time. We want to help you do more. And as a result, with that saved time, we can do more well visits. Again, in a moment, I'll talk about those well visits also bring more revenue eventually. And they also talked about the fact that they like the access, right? So having the ability to just log into a tool and say, I want also this in this questionnaire, I can assign this on the fly, or I can add this to be a part of the automated process is really easy. They find it very convenient and truly shows and it helps with what they were hoping for. What is that success? Well, ultimately, I can do this with few clicks. Okay, I can't really do that with paper. It's hard in time. And my favorite one, that's when I learned that joke about kids eating floors, is the ASQs. Okay, so this particular office that I talked to, they told me in very blunt language, we did bare minimum. Okay, now again, it goes back to me not being a clinician, but apparently ASQs there's a bare minimum in order to meet the clinical needs, but you can also do them at much higher intervals. Okay, so having the ability to do this at a more regular pace, staying more consistent is something that they really, really enjoy. And they find that definitely with the patient care and outcomes, significant, huge. Okay, I hope you guys can resonate to that particular story as well. And I did also talk to clients who said, even on paper, they did it at the very, not bare minimum, they did it at intervals, but most clients were only doing that bare minimum in terms of how often they were screening for ASQs. And then other client, client B, this is a funny one because portal has always been a funny one to talk about, right? The engagement in portal. But this particular office actually is seeing an increase portal engagement since CHADIS, right? Because we're talking about in order to do this, you have to have a portal. And if you don't have a portal, then, well, you can't do these questionnaires, at home while you're watching a movie while the kids are asleep, right? So that's the idea. And so luckily for this particular office, they are seeing a significant increase. Again, that's a struggle for a lot of offices. It's that talking about patient engagement and talking about portal adoption, okay? And we talk about client C, talking about added visit types. So what I mean by this is that sometimes clients would have them broken down or have them combined together, like let's say anxiety, depression, they will be able to break those into certain categories and just in addition add more visit types, meaning more assessments and more screenings organically. And here, because we're talking about numbers and data, I'm not sure if Brenna from Topeka is here, but she was kind enough and very nice to actually email me some of the stuff that they were able to, that they find that as a result of the integration, they believe that some of these numbers that you're seeing here is due to the fact that they're integrated. Again, I can't really speak much as clinically wise, but I know you guys understand this way better than I do. But looking at some of these numbers here are, is what excites us, right? Is what we want to see is more statistics and more abnormal findings, which is a good thing in terms of preventing and treating your patients. Again, I'm not a clinician by any means, just a dude who sits behind a computer that know a couple of things, but when I was told this, I said, can you please email that to me? Because this is something that I really want to show the things that are actually we can, report on. Okay, and then I'm going to wrap up with the finances, and you guys already know how I feel about money and children. But again, as a result, all of this is supposed to help you also, financial health. And so the integrations, I can simply push a few buttons on my laptop, and I can prove that it's an investment it's worth having. Okay, so very simple. Integrations will pay for themselves. I don't know what the contracting piece, and I don't know how much it all costs, but at the end of the day, we can prove we can see the numbers that it will increase as a result. And now, of course, it's not all the integration. That's not the only part. You have added locations. Obviously, naturally, you're going to be growing more, adding more families and adding more patients to your office. But a good portion of that is really backed by the solid integration that we have. Again, more screenings that you do, it's all tied together, right? I can talk about this never. I think you guys are getting a sense of what I'm trying to say here. But if you're doing more screenings, the more billing screenings, obviously, you will have more revenue. Okay, more well visits. Again, I'm just in a way repeating myself here. But we did. This is the reports that I can run on. There's a number of other practices that have been able to add 1 or 2 well visits. Now, my understanding is that the well visits is really how pediatricians survive. So that was really nice to hear, and it's something that really we're doing this that is one of the reasons as to why we're doing this integration. This is the reasons why we spend lots of hours talking with you guys, making sure that you do all your configuration work and help you make that come into a reality. Same thing, save time, more well visits. Again, we're talking about from the front desk, from the moment from anything from the front all the way to the back to the providers. If you're able to do this and if you're able to do it successfully, you will in fact save a good amount of time where you're going to open up some of those slots in the appointment book and really have the room for additional visits. Maybe not necessarily all well visits, but again, that appointment book really opens up because of your time. That's the idea, that's what we're striving for. I hope you guys think it's funny, but it's real. Again, it's time. You have to pay for all of this. And again, in time, sometimes you have to pay for time too, right? And that's expense that you don't really see. When something is integrated and this works behind the scenes, this happens without even knowing, and that will certainly save the time. Again, one of the analogies that I like to use, and this is something that I heard, is that it's a lot of time for folks to fill this out in a waiting room, right? So let's say I'm a front desk person, I have to pick up a bunch of forms, give it to a mom and say, hey mom, fill this out. That's time, right? Then you're also waiting for them. Now, again, it goes back to the early on in my presentation is that we also do have to find a better way to engage more families to do this before, but ultimately that is the goal here. And so let's look at some numbers, and I'm going to talk about how I got some of these numbers. So Bloom Pediatrics, I'm not sure if anyone's here from Bloom, but when I talked to Dr. Schaefer, one of the things that I wanted to run is like, what's the CPT code that I should be looking at, right? So one of the things that she recommended is I look at 96110 along with the modifier, and then I went back about a couple of years back and compared it, okay? So you have a date range of 2 years before the integration. You're looking at 2 years post. That number freaked me out, okay? Because I don't see this. I'm not in the office. I help clients implement this tool. So I called and I say, hey, I have a question, and I think she freaked out. And so I'm seeing some really weird things and crazy things and positive things and all at once, right? All these feelings and all these emotions that went through my head because it was exciting to see that. And then she said, no, you are not what you think you are. That's the reality of what we've seen. Again, most of it thanks to the integration, but a lot of it, some of it has to do with, increased population and so forth, but a lot of it is the fact that a lot of these orders are now being auto-assigned, and a lot of it has to do with what we're seeing so far. And again, these reports here, the numbers that you're seeing here for this particular office comes from the report called IRA. If you guys are familiar with it, you can run this on your own and you can see these numbers. So that's one of the things that I want to mention. I can easily prove that integrations pay for themselves. Now, and not every office is the same, right? Obviously, that's a really extreme one. But we have another patient. I wanted to make sure I picked up a local practice. These guys are down the road, I believe. And same thing. So we're going back to 2 years prior to the integration to 2 years post. We are definitely seeing increase. And again, I am not sure if this is the only code that I really should be looking at. If you guys have any other ideas and there are different procedures you'd like me to take a look at, I'd be happy to run some of this stuff with you and provide you with those reports as well. But again, we're talking about total amount of 108 to 137. That's a pretty big increase. Again, I just want to make sure that it's well understood that we believe that a lot of this has to do with integration, but some of it is, of course, always going to be the growth, adding more patients and so forth. But how many patients can you really add in, let's say, 2 years PAM? I don't know. I don't know if that plays the role as well. And then, again, same exact stuff, just to 3 different clients. One of the biggest reasons to why I wanted to share this with you is that, again, just our reports don't lie, numbers don't lie. This is stuff that I can easily pull up on anyone's server, even after this meeting, and I can show you some of this stuff that I'm showing you now. So again, if you're a client in here who might be interested, talk to us. I'll be happy to explain more. And so it goes back to that success. It goes back to how do we get there? And that's the same conversation, again, that I had this morning, is what can we do to get even better, to be more efficient, to increase this. And the biggest piece is what I believe it is. It's the patient engagement and staying consistent with your configurations, okay? In terms of the patient engagement, you guys, hold on. Okay, good. So you have to stay consistent with your configuration. So during the process of implementing this solution, right, you talk to me, you talk to CHADIS, and then you go live. But then the question really becomes, do you ever go back and reassess this, make adjustments? You know, you have to make sure you stay on top of that. Are you up to date with your billing codes too? Because let's say you do go live with the integration, you add maybe new questionnaires. You have to remember that you have to stay on top of the consistently correct with mapping and also adding those CPT codes, right? Because that will help making this really smooth in terms of how well it works. Now, for that, I'm not going to spend any time. If you have questions on any of that stuff, please do reach out to us, reach out to CHADIS. We'll be happy to talk about, you know, if you can make any configuration changes or adjustments. But the one thing that, so where's this one? Okay, sorry, I'm a little confused on the engagement part. This one. This is really the one that I really want to spend a few minutes talk about. In the EHR, we do give you some tools, right? I think as much as we want to say, you know, our families and patients are not doing this, there are things that you can do proactively. You know, you can run reports on almost a weekly basis, monthly basis in EHR to identify those patients without, you know, let's say a portal. You can proactively add that. You can outreach to some of these and say, hey, we still notice that you haven't completed your questionnaires before the visit. Will you please fill this out? And understand that if you're talking about notifications and CHADIS and how do we communicate with those families, is that we send a number of notifications to their portal, right? And so it is frustrating that if you're looking out for those results the day before and you're not seeing them where they're supposed to be, you know, the advice is, you know, use those tools that you have in EHR. Oh, and I think, is there a question?
Yeah, how much flexibility do we have in running reports related to CHADIS? Do we have to request them all from y'all, like, or can we run any reports on our own in your chat? Do we have any flexibility in running our own reports on CHADIS, like surveys sent out, surveys completed, on different types of surveys, breaking it down by offices, or does that all have to be done as a request through y'all?
So at this time, we do not have such reports. However, I'm glad that folks here from CHADIS are, because there are a number of different reports that you can, in fact, get from CHADIS. Some of them are customized, and maybe some of them automated, or both. But in terms of PCC-EHR, we do not have, number one request is what you just asked, is for us to run a report 7 days before, you know, in advance, and find out how many of those families have not completed questionnaires. That is a number one request in terms of the integration with us on the PCC side. We don't have that, and Hannah can probably say a couple of words on that particular question. Just gonna get you the mic, Hannah.
Yeah, so CHADIS does have the ability to run those reports, and actually several of our clients have it set up where we can send it to your email automatically. So there are several clients who have like monthly questionnaire totals sent to their email on the 1st of every month. Some people have specific results being sent, so if there's any abnormal results on the PHQ-9, for example, for risk of suicide questions and things like that, they'll get a report of those, the patients. So some have them set for every day, some have them set for every 3 days. So if you just speak to your CHADIS account manager, which is me or Steven, we can set that up for you, and it's really nice because it's just automatic, so yeah. And we can run reports on anything you want, results, totals, completion rates, things like that. Yeah, well, yeah. So we do have a feature in CHADIS too where you can look at some charts. So it's in Office Administration Tools, and I'm happy to send some info to all clients after this about that. But you can look at some of the totals and things like that. It's a more general view than what we could set up for you automatically through email, but it's still helpful to look at.
Awesome, thank you, Hannah. And so I just want to quickly, we're wrapping about 10 minutes left. I just want to quickly talk about the portal adoption. Again, one of the biggest issues that we had initially that we didn't, not an issue, I should probably rephrase that, but the way that we used to sync portal accounts to CHADIS. So early on, when we rolled out the interface, we only synced an active portal account user when there was a qualified CHADIS visit, right? Meaning like if the patient on schedule qualifies for the questionnaires, at that time we would sync the portal for that particular family over to CHADIS. Then that created a lot of issues in terms of how quickly we were syncing those over. So we made a change, and now as long as you have an active portal, it doesn't matter when you create, it doesn't really matter if the patient even has a visit, we're gonna sync that over to CHADIS on every 5-minute increments, okay? So the one thing that I like to just say is that if you ever getting a phone call at the front desk and someone's calling you to ask you about a simple ration, maybe what over-the-counter medication that they can buy, if you're a person that answers that phone and you realize that there is no portal, and even though there's no visit, take just 2 minutes to create that portal, because within 5 minutes, we're actually going to send that over to them. So when that next time the appointment qualifies for questionnaires, you're not going to be chasing them around, because there will be assigned. So that's just one thing that I wanted to highlight there, because I feel like that I haven't personally spent a lot of time explaining that. So that portal part is vital for the integration, right? No portal, no questionnaires. It's very simple like that. And I think we had another question. Do you mind just is the mic on? All right.
Quick question. Besides the reports for the PSQ, PHQ-9, and the SCARE forms, is there an alert that can be sent, like if it's high?
For like critical, yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
if you have an appointment, we can get an alert that'll alert us in PCC?
Absolutely. So there's actually 2 ways to do that. One, CHADIS can help you set up a daily email, a report that gets sent to your office on a daily basis, which indicates if there's any surveys with the critical responses. And even if there are none, you're still going to get that email, and it will let you know if there are any. And also in the EHR, there's a configuration setting that we can help you set up, where those results will be directly delivered to the provider's messaging queue. So there's 2 ways to handle that. But yeah, and we can help you with both. I think we have a few minutes. Okay.
So I just want to echo also the fact that when you first slide of 51% pre-coming in, I think the most painful part for us are really the adolescents, because when they can't do it beforehand, they're not going to want to do it with the parents sitting right next to them, and we're really having a very hard time trying to get the adolescents to be able to get that, to do it before the visit.
Yeah, totally echo that. This is something that 3 of us here hear every single day, emails upon emails on that. And again, that goes back to really finding a solution on how to handle that particular piece. And in terms of us as a computer company, as an EHR vendor, it's very difficult to find that solution in terms of what can I recommend. We do provide you with the ability to create multiple portals, that including the self portal for the patient, along with the parent. But that is a question that I personally struggle to give any advice on in terms of what I've seen or I heard from clients. And every office also has sort of a different workflows in terms of how they handle those particular set of patients.
And I'm just curious if anybody here uses CHADIS and they have solutions for their 13 and over patients and how they get them engaged to do it beforehand. And
I would be happy if somebody can speak up onto that, because that is the one question that I just don't have an answer for. We have someone in the back.
Is it okay if I go ahead and ask?
Yeah.
Okay, so once our patients are in the clinic and we have the iPads, even with that, there's no way around the portal, right? There's no way that they could go directly into the chart and, okay, they can.
Yeah. So
okay.
As long as they're filled out, via an iPad or phone, those all get imported back to PCC-HR.
Okay, without the patient having a portal account.
Yeah. This is great. I've anticipated questions, so this is awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, so there is a way to have teens complete CHADIS on CHADIS directly through the iPad or tab or phone, so without a portal user. So you do have to create a CHADIS account. It's a more manual process of staff having to put that in there, but it only takes a minute, and then you're able to get those results back into PCC. So PCC does accept results that are manually assigned in CHADIS. Those just come to your messaging queue, and then you attach it to the appointment. So, yeah.
All right, thank you, Hannah. Oh, yeah, thank you, Althea.
And she said, I already know this. In our office, it's also a major pain point. We just go ahead and send it to the parent. My docs say, I can tell if the parent filled that out or the kid did. And there's like a big disclaimer over that form that says, this is not for you, this is for your kid. It's up to you if you find that valid or not.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So with our office, we have sometimes a disconnect where we set up the patient with their portal, but it's not coming through on CHADIS, their account. So if the kid is 17 years old and I'm trying to assign them their questionnaires, I can't find them on there. I'm only finding parent 1 and parent 2. And on the portal, I have the kid set up as self. This isn't a day, each patient thing, this is a once in a while thing, but that is a disconnect with at least our office.
Yeah, that's a great question. That seems like, again, an edge, as case specific. And so there is something that's preventing that particular patient, that particular portal from syncing over. And then we would have to know about this in order to define and figure out where the disconnect is. Sometimes if you have an inactive chart or an active flag, that can prevent from scheduling and so forth. Maybe before that particular portal was added, maybe the chart didn't have an inactive flag, but maybe when you added the patient as their own portal account user, maybe the inactive flag was added in the meantime, which is the #1 reason in preventing from syncing over to CHADIS. Again, when you have those, feel free to just email us. We can easily identify why it didn't sync. But that doesn't seem like a global or overall issue, so I'm happy to investigate that for you at any given time. Right.
Last question.
Also, we have some same-sex parents that they have the lactation forms, they skip over it. Is there a way we could cancel that one specific form out for that specific case, or no?
Yeah, we could. Those orders can simply be canceled, but you would do it out on CHADIS' side.
So you can choose a more specific relationship than primary caregiver in your setup. So, for example, some of the postnatal depression skills, people will just choose mother instead of just general primary caregiver. So that's an ability to fix that in your setup on CHADIS. Yep, yeah. So yeah, contact one of us and we can help you with that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right, and anyone else? I hope you guys enjoyed the session. I really hope that for those of you integrated, if you have any comments or anything like that you'd like to talk about, I'd be happy to meet with you guys while I'm here, or on Zoom, whatever works. Thank you again.